Zade Comics, artist and co-creator on Magic Cop, and I've been a graphic artist for about 9 years now. I'm just one half of the two best-looking brothers in all of comics. And today we're going to do another movie poster breakdown where we take a dive into a movie poster and break it down by how a graphic artist would look at it and the components that should be into a good movie poster. So let's take a look at what we have today. We are looking at the movie posters for Terminator Dark Fate. So this is what I think the 5th movie in the Terminator franchise, and you know, these are the posters that we have. There's a few other posters, but you know, a lot of them use the same elements, and you know, they're character posters or something like that. Those are pretty easy. They're just basically portraits of some of the characters to show them off for, we can get the audience to recognize them and then want to go see the movie. These, though, are a little bit more in the realm of graphic design, and so I figured we would take a look at these. And then I have a couple of other interesting movie posters for Terminator Dark Fate that we're going to take a look at as well later in the video. So we're going to start off with these two right here, and specifically with the one on the right, because it is the most simple movie posters you could probably design, other than just having the title in the middle of the poster. So here we go. So we have Sarah Connor walking on a deserted highway here. A couple of the elements that we're using here, we have the lines leading up to the focal point, which is the center here. Although the line here, which is the road line, is offset, surely that is done to make the uneasy feeling, or like now everything is not as stable as it once was. Similarly, with the sun in the background is not directly centered behind her. There is another poster where the characters are walking and the sun is directly behind them. So this, you could tell this was intentionally done, possibly for the reason of, doing like a, something is uneven, or there's an unbalance or something like that going on here. A nice thing that they've done here is created a nice light background for the character, although we are getting a lot of spillover, which of course is intentional because they're using a particular color here, which we'll talk about in a minute. We are getting in the nice silhouette of the character, and we can see her very prominently, even though, let's zoom in here, we get a lot of like this sun glare over her shoulder. The image is very high res, but here we have the use of like this orangish color. You can see the entire color, the entire poster is like a kind of like this beige orange. Orange is used a lot for, like these action type movies, orange and blue, even though there's no blue on this poster pretty much anywhere. Orange is kind of like that action-y type of color for whatever reason. It's been adopted for that kind of action genre, and it gives you that sense, I think they're trying to convey, of kind of that doomsday, kind of like that old Judgment Day world that they're gonna set you up in, especially with these mountains back here. And it's kind of like that wasteland post-apocalyptic, which is really, really, it was popular a few years ago. Everything was post-apocalyptic, even with like Mad Max and stuff. And you're really getting like that Mad Max Fury Road vibe for everything that's going on here. We even have the road, and this orange sky with kind of nothing, no buildings or anything, single female walking alone. It's really giving you that vibe. This is one of the problems I have with this poster in particular, is that there's no way of knowing what this movie is about, and this doesn't seem to be a very early poster. And in fact, it is the poster when you go to like Fandango or something. It is the poster that they show you right there on the marquee about the movie. So like, this poster is required that it conveys the message that the movie is trying to sell you, which I don't think that it does, because Like if we look at the old movie posters for Terminator, and you have Schwarzenegger standing there in like the black leather jacket with the sunglasses on and the gun, you know, he's super close to the camera. He's taking up the entire poster. I think that, you know, that is conveying a sense of like, you know, action, and this is going to be like a suspenseful movie. You know, when you here's your imposing villain right here on the cover. This is a little bit less intriguing, I think. This empty space is being used to like, you know, create the sense of like mystery and wonder and stuff, and you know, not even like for the movie, but just for the poster viewer. And so I don't particularly like this poster as it requires that you know who this is already. Over here, this one is obviously more complicated. It has a lot more elements in it. It is a better poster, although I still don't think it's the perfect poster, only because this whole setup here with your guys, and here's a face, and here's some characters and stuff, this is done to death. Disney's using this a lot, you know, with the Marvel movies. You have like a big head, and you have a couple guys standing. You know, a lot of companies are using this. This is very contemporary. Everybody wants to show off, you know, here's how many actors we have in the movie. You know, here's a couple of new characters, and that's why they're a little bit smaller. Everybody's, you know, action pose or something like that. Although the nice thing that they've done here is they've used the Terminator head here, which is cool, because usually they would put like some prominent actor or something like that here. So down here in the bottom, there's a lot of elements here. You know, we have the sun, which is blowing out over the city, and this is really giving you that post-apocalyptic look, you know, with the orange again. So obviously there's some sense of urgency, like the planet's going to end or something like that. You have your two characters here. Obviously this is the Terminator, even though this kind of requires that you know who the Terminator is. This guy, very reminiscent of the Robert Patrick T-1000 liquid steel Terminator. So we have like his pose, but again it requires that you know what Terminator is. It's not just kind of, you know, here's our villains and look, they look imposing. You know, these guys don't necessarily look imposing. Like this guy up here, yeah, and then you might be able to infer that this is this guy down here. I guess you probably could. And then we have the elements here of the fire, which is the classic element for you know, chaos and disorder and action in a movie, combined with the orange color, which gives us an action movie. We have which this is really nice because the smoke is giving us a nice way of transitioning into these characters off to the side. You know, they've created this nice path here, and creating this backdrop where this woman's black pants can come out of and stuff. So that's pretty cool. This poster is another just formulaic use of the elements that we already have. I don't think that they're kind of pushing anything or doing anything really creative or really doing anything to sell this movie specifically for the kind of movie that it is. I think there's a lot of other movies out there that have done some really cool things with their posters that are, you know, they use a lot of the elements that we have because graphic design, you know, can dictate what we should do for a certain type of movie. I think that this one is just super formulaic. You know, we have face, you know, a couple of characters. You have your villains, and they're walking towards you. The sense of urgency, there's no, like, giant nuclear explosion going on in the background. I don't know. These posters are not really that good, in my opinion. I think that they're too formulaic. Well, this one's very formulaic. And this one doesn't convey the message that we're watching a Terminator movie. Alright, so we're going to move on to these other two posters, which I think are going to be really interesting because these are the two of the posters for the Chinese markets. And they are much more interesting than the ones that we have over here in the American market. I think that... let's take a look at these first, and then we'll do some criticisms on here. So we're going to start with the one on the right. Obviously, we have some big, Chinese script and stuff going on down here. On the Chinese posters, there's always a ton of Chinese and Japanese posters. There's always a lot of writing everywhere, and I think that's pretty cool because it kind of fills up some negative space with information, and it kind of gives it like a punk rocky look to it, or like an underground look to it. So here we have on the right, we have all of our characters. They're all in profile, and the profile shots are always really good for creating personality with the characters. We can really relate to them now because we can see expressions on their faces, and we know that they're going in this direction, and obviously they're fighting something. We have a big explosion going on over here, chaos and disorder, classically used. We have a lot of really nice lighting on everybody's faces. There's a huge contrast between this half of the poster and then this darker half of the poster, which is really cool looking. We have a lot of really awesome explosion effects going on. The highlighting here on these characters' faces really create a nice, interesting look on this poster. Although I think it kind of, this might be intentional. I think, they're trying to really showcase this is your hero character from the future. And so what we can look at here is your lines are really going up toward her. And that's really interesting. I just noticed that right now because I was going to make a criticism about how her gun isn't facing this way, which would have been really good because obviously they're all fighting in this direction. But I think this is what they were going for. They were going to create these pathways for your eyes to be led up to the focal point of this poster, which is this character right here. So that's pretty interesting that they were doing that. They're really trying to push that character. This one's a really simple poster. Obviously, it could be, it wasn't, but it could have been just taken with all of them posing in a single shot. But of course they didn't do that because we see some lighting here on her face. Obviously she's in the background being protected by these hero characters, and we could see their faces clearly because obviously it's a franchise. They want to show these characters off, so you have some people coming back from the original movies and a couple new characters, so we could see their faces are pretty well lit. So I like this poster, even though this poster here is showing me straight up action movie, and that's pretty cool. Even though you're not getting this is a Terminator movie or anything like that. We have this down here, which is classic. We have it in Chinese and your dates and stuff like that. If you got rid of this might be an interesting movie to see, even if it was just from the Chinese market. Here's a cool action movie. So I think that this poster does a good job of conveying an action movie. I don't know how well it conveys a Terminator movie, specifically, unless you know who these characters are. But action movie, it's definitely doing a better job than the American market posters. This one here on the left is a really, really cool action movie poster that has some other design elements in here. And the number one design element that I think is really cool here is that it's bringing in this monster movie vibe up here, where we have, this guy in the background, and his teeth are kind of up at this upward angle. We're looking up at him. This is a very, very cinematic approach to kind of scariness. He's looking down at you. We're below this Terminator here, and he's looking right at us. He's not looking off to the side. He's looking right at us. And that's creating a really, really sense of eeriness and stuff. And he's in the background. He's not a prominent figure on this poster. And the fact that they did that is really cool because it makes it even more scary. I think that's a really, really cool thing that they've done there. This poster, this is almost out of the early 2000s, this poster. Fast and the Furious had this, the Bourne Identity with their sloping lines here, even though I think they were all sloping in the other direction. This creates action just coming out of everywhere. This is cool. we see here there's a lot of like the same pictures that we're using on some of the other posters. I think the composition of this poster is a lot more intense. Actually, this is probably a scene from the movie or something. We have some, oh man, this is another element here. We have vehicles. So this is kind of like a grindy, like a grindhouse poster almost. You get your vehicles here, get your action of the weapons shooting here, some of your characters in some like really strong stances, your other characters in the background looking helpless, big, strong, prominent character in the movie right in the front and center. Usually, or you'd have him, in the background, big, but like really well lit up, and then maybe you'd have some guys down here or something like that. This is almost a modern grindhouse poster. And this is really, really cool because this is really conveying the action sense to the viewer of the poster. You're getting like these lines really cutting down, creating that sense of urgency. Again, we have here this kind of orange and yellow being used in these streaks here, which is, totally about an action movie. And then here, without question, even if you were like, well, I don't really know who this guy is, if you've been alive anywhere in the past number of years, you know what this is now. And this is the only poster that we've looked at where Schwarzenegger here has the Terminator endoskeleton visible. And I think that is really important if you're trying to sell a Terminator movie. You could have this guy, but how many evil robot movies are there out there? There's only one franchise where you have Schwarzenegger playing the cyborg. And this poster is probably the best poster out of all of them. Just stumbled across it while searching online for some of the cool Terminator movie posters, and this one's my favorite. Even though it's for the Chinese market, I think that the elements in here are really, really well used for conveying the type of movie it is. You're not lacking anything. You have your action, you have your character faces here, you have exactly what kind of movie this is. Terminator here, Terminator here. You have your your hero characters in action poses. We have a couple of action poses here. I think this is the perfect Terminator poster. I love it. It's straight out of the late 90s, early 2000s, right when, this type of movie would have been on top of, the movie charts. I think, the 90s were really, really good for these kind of cheesy action movies and stuff. And this is perfect for that. So let me know in the comments what you think. What do you guys think of these posters? I think this is a kind of a cool take on these Chinese movie posters. Do you like checking out these other foreign market posters as well? And did you guys see Terminator Dark Fate? I haven't seen it yet, so let me know in the comments. And as always, go to zadecomics.com if you guys want to help us out and pick up a copy of our comic book Magic Cop, or check out patreon.com/ZadeNinja, where you could help us out making YouTube videos and get some cool art in your inboxes every week. So we'll see you next time.